welcome everyone to the 100th edition of Random Review 2.0, and the time has flown by. Man, I've already reviewed 100 toys in this format, more than 100 toys, including, Minicons and multi-packs and etc. But it's been fun. Like, there's something really fun and just freeing about this format. Just grab a toy off the shelf, throw it on the table, and just talk about it for 15 or so minutes. It's kind of fun. I kind of like doing it this way. So why not? Let's keep going. And I figured for number 100, something a little bit special. So in this case, I figured it had to be the toy that kind of made me slightly Z-list internet famous in the first place. At least the upgraded version of him. Universe 2 Hot Shot. Probably one of my most requested toys of all time. So I try to get the light adjusted so you can see it a little bit better. Yep, it's Hot Shot back in his Armada body, though upgraded in several ways. For starters, the yellow doesn't, maybe it's just my eyes, but the yellow does not seem quite as blaring as it was before. And I will say, with the translucent plastic windshields as well as the sleeker, more realistic look, he definitely gets away from that play school aesthetic the original toy had. That said, it's still very familiar as the young Autobot Roadster from Armada. So all the details you need are there, but it's been cleaned up. Let's put it that way. And then there's details that, well, they weren't there originally. For starters, the engine block is now molded in. It's not a separate piece anymore like it was. It doesn't latch onto the Minicon for some inexplicable reason. And that does mean that there is no gimmick in the front of his bumper, which means we can just have this nice looking bumper with a grille and the headlights now in translucent clear, just to make sure they look like headlights. And then you got the blue, which trails from the front bumper all the way through the bottom and all the way to the back, where the license plate has one of the nicest little fan touches I've ever seen. Jam being very famous in the fandom at the time for a weird little webcomic someone put together where he's just obsessed with this jam stuff. It was even on his profile on the back of the card. I love that Hasbro threw this in. It's a hysterical and very cute nod to the fans, as well as canonically making one of his weirdest little escapades somewhat canonical. It's kind of strange. So the vehicle mode actually gets an approval from me. It takes away a lot of what was annoying before, and it still has a lot of nice details going for it. I'm a fan. I will also say, much improved. There is an Autobot logo that isn't blotted out with a bunch of red paint. You can actually see the lines, and that's far, far better. So that is Hot Shot in the vehicle mode. Not a whole lot to say. There are no gimmicks in the toy. He just rolls, which is pretty much what I wanted the first Hot Shot to do. But he does have a little bit extra, and of course by a little bit, I mean his Minicon. Jolt is back as well. Like Hot Shot, a completely new body, and even though they could have just recast the original, but hey, what can you do? So, completely new version of the toy. Once again, he is the rescue helicopter with the little floaty pontoons on the side and everything. You can see a lot of tiny little details molded in to get doors, windows, and the lot all represented in there. A little bit of silver for the front windshields, and a little bit of yellow highlight here in the back that'll come into play in robot mode. See, little fins as well as the tail blades, all represented very nicely. And at the top, black helicopter blades that spin quite well with a quick little flick of the finger. On the bottom is where you notice it a lot. The Minicon port is now toward the front, and the midsection is filled up quite nicely. It's fairly solid looking, which is kind of a surprise for a Minicon. So that's what Jolt looks like now. Now, he's been re-engineered quite a bit, surprisingly so, considering the original was so simple. But he can still do a few things. There is a Minicon port on the back, and if you should want, he can actually peg into Hot Shot to get that little turbine mode he had before, though it doesn't look quite as good. This looks like the DeLorean trying to catch the lightning bolt in 1955. But you cannot fold this guy in half the way you used to be able to. So we are working with limited circumstances. However, you will notice there's a little groove there in the windshield, and that actually fits as we can push those little pontoons into the sides of the spoiler and fill out that gap, letting him ride a very strange way. Again, you cannot fold him down. I'm sure this is not street legal to have something hanging that far off of your back bumper. But, you know, it's a couple different ways of integrating the Minicon. So for that, it actually works. So we're going to set him aside, and we're going to take this guy into robot mode. And for starters, before we get there, I'm going to show you he's very gappy, if you haven't noticed by now. You can see gaps in there, gaps to the side. It's pretty bad on the other side. This toy is notoriously finicky to get from one mode to the other. Not so much vehicle to robot, but oh my god. The robot to vehicle is terrible. This toy spent like a good part of like 4 weeks sitting on the floor of my bedroom because I rage quit the toy. It is that frustrating. Everything in here. Take a screen cap of this if you're having trouble, because everything has to be aligned right down to the millimeter to get this all connected as well as it does, and it still doesn't connect that well. It's an extremely finicky bit of engineering that, once again, we just cannot have a nice hotshot now, can we? Something always has to go wrong. Now, this transformation starts with the doors, which I kind of like, because that way, you can have the doors propped open a little bit. It's a little bit showroom car-y. It kind of works until you actually look at all the mechanical robot bits that hang out on the side. This is gonna be one of those transformations that's something of a well, here, see, it all just kind of comes apart. Yeah, this is going to be something of one of those transformations that is an airplane crash. If you can walk away from it, if the toy can stand up as a robot afterwards, it is a good transformation, because this guy is finicky and kludgy and kind of unpleasant to transform. So I've broken up all the panels just to kind of separate this guy out. And the big transformation starts by getting these arms out of the way, which immediately presents a problem. See, the original version of the toy actually has 2 missile launchers that kind of pegged into the back here. Well, they don't have those anymore. They got molded out for cost. But the gap that they were supposed to fill got molded back in, and now there is not quite enough clearance in these parts to actually pull off any kind of decent arrangement of the kibble, which is really, really weird and unfortunate. A lot of people just disconnect these. They put them as boxing gloves or figure out some way of folding on the back. I'm going to show you what I do, and this is probably going to result in them popping off at the socket at some point, but hopefully I'm doing this at the right time to give you a good look. I rotate them 180 degrees, and when I get them to the back, I fold them up in a cross pattern, like so. Now, I'm going to have to get the rest of them transformed so you can actually see what that accomplishes, and for that, Hotshot has to do this complete 180 here. His entire torso has to fold up, and then the legs have to fold down, and you can kind of see where this starts to kind of like just kind of slam together. Like he is his own personal like demolition derby. All right, so that gets let's see. So with that done, we can what else can we do? Ah, come on, man. Cooperate with me. Yeesh. Yeah, this is where I have so much trouble with this toy, getting the feet out. That way we can actually get the windshields tucked away inside the leg. This transformation's taken a long time, but trust me, like I'm trying to go through here because just so. All right, so we get the other one out, we get that one in. All right, so that's going to give us our legs, which once we get all of this all realigned, hold it back up, and we get this, all this swing back up. All that pegs together up there. Hang on, just making sure everything's in its place, because everything has a place and everything should be in its place. And now, are you in there? There you are. All right, so to finish it off, I'm going to put the kibble to the back. And with that, we're going to call our Universe 2 hotshot completely transformed. It takes way too long as I'm trying to make sure all the steps are done correctly. He is kind of annoying that way. Of course, it's hotshot. He should be annoying in some way. Let's get a close-up look at the head, because that was one of the big problems with the original. As you can see, it's kind of a neutral face. If I can get a little bit more light on it, there we go. Yeah, it's a very serious face this time. He's not grinning like an idiot, and it's not like a over-exaggerated, angry little look like his repaint had. It's just kind of a hotshot. It's just kind of neutral. And I don't mind that. I think it's a nice little mix, and I think it's a better representation of what the character had going on, especially later in the series. So, that's actually a big improvement. If I adjust these a little bit, there we go. So, what else can we see that has been improved? Well, for the start, proportions look a lot better. Again, we are away from that play school aesthetic. You see a lot more red in this mode, including a little bit to the arms, but of course, most to the body, as he is supposed to represent a little bit of a race car driver aesthetic. He kind of has this fire suit thing going on with his entire chest and thighs done up in the same color, and the silver representing all the cross straps of the safety harness. That's also where you get the head itself, which has a race helmet motif that goes all the way to a closing visor. The visor itself does have a lot of those little scanner details and things molded in that was represented in the show, which is a nice little touch, if a bit hard to see sometimes. You can also see he has a pretty big light piping port on the back, though it doesn't quite amount to the light that I really think they were intending. As far as everything else goes, you get a little light blue just to break up the yellow down here, put in some of his old colors, a little bit of black, a little bit of more dark blue. Not too bad. Like, he makes the colors work a little bit better than the original one, at least. And again, maybe it's just like, maybe I just haven't looked at him in a while. And when I look at him, I mean, like, look at my shelves. But it just doesn't seem as blaring bright as the original toy did. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being more forgiving in my older age. Now, the big point is articulation, because articulation was the real failing point of Armada Hotshot, because of all those gimmicks that were intruding. Well, no gimmicks now, so a ball-jointed neck, vastly improved over the original. I'm going to hold off on the arms for now. The thighs are universally jointed. There's a slight detent to them, but not one that you can really, hold to. You can get into some midpoint positions. It's not very firm. Thigh swivel. You also have swivel just below the knee, as well as a 90-degree knee. So good leg articulation. Nothing in the ankle, though I will warn, I hate this part about the toy. This is probably the biggest flaw it has. The foot, for some reason, goes up in the front. Like, instead of hinging down like you would normally expect, it goes up, and there's nothing like stopping it. There's no like little bump that tells you, no, this is as far as the foot goes. So that hinge has to be tight if any forward motion or if any pose that's forward heavy is going to be presented. Otherwise, those feet bend upward and the toy falls over. Now, I held off on the arms because this is the crucial point. Now, you see, he has a bicep swivel. He has a double-jointed elbow, which can, in some positions, get above a 90-degree angle, but the kibble on both sides does kind of restrict just how this works. So the articulation in the arms is already better than the original. The shoulders are the big crux. Now, if you left the kibble the way the instructions told you to, then you've got a bunch of problems up here. These spoilers clash in the way, and there's nowhere for any of the parts to go. It's a huge mess. However, you'll note, during transformation, I put them a completely different way than the instructions tell you. This means the shoulders fully operate. Full, universal, unrestricted articulation. That is all I ever wanted. That would have saved you from Plastic Addict. It really would have. That's all I wanted. Good shoulders. You had good legs. You needed good arms. You got them now. You just have to break the rules and do your own thing in the transformation in order to get those good shoulders out of that toy. So, you actually can do it. So, that's Hot Shot, and we'll get back to him in a little bit, but hey, we still have Jolt, don't we? We'll transform Jolt. Jolt is a quick little transformation. For starters, the legs now form out of the midsection, so they no longer form from the front of the helicopter. The rear of the helicopter is still the chest. The floaties are still the arms, and now he has this big backpack made up of everything that was the cockpit, including the rotor, which of course was always on his back. So you have this nice little Minicon Jolt, and you can see from the head, he still has a bit of a Power Glide look to him. Silver face, cone head, yeah, just slightly Power Glide, and that little bit of yellow on the chest does give him a little bit more character than the original toy had. Now, articulation-wise, outward hips. The hips also move forward, but they're on the same joint, so when one goes, so does the other. No knees because of the new engineering. Shoulders and elbows both have vertical movement, and that's about it. So, very simple articulation for a Minicon. Here's a problem. No heel spurs. He also does not have any inner foot, which means the center of his weight ends up on these two little nubs and then tries to fall backwards on these, which off-balances him and makes him extremely back-heavy, extremely hard to stand up. I had to basically, hunch him forward just to get some kind of actual stable stance out of him. Oh, man. It's like the Hunchback of Ayakam. Not a good Minicon. This is, unfortunately, a downgrade. Okay, so the transformation's a little bit more interesting. It doesn't matter if it can't stand up. Man, I've had to make that argument too many times. If it can't stand up, it doesn't work as an action figure. So, there is Minicon Jolt in all his splendor. But the main event is Hot Shot. And while he is missing those launchers that give him a little bit more to do and give him a little bit of gimmick, I think the new one is a marked improvement. While still having some problems, a super finicky transformation into vehicle mode, some massive kibble issues if you don't transform the kibble correctly, and those stupid feet that want to fold up the second any weight is applied to them. Beyond that, he's far better looking, proportions are better, articulation is drastically improved. Do you see how much better a toy gets when you aren't cramming an enormous, pointless gimmick into him? So, that, for everyone who ever wanted to know, is my opinion of Universe 2 Hot Shot. He is actually he's a fairly good toy. Minicon sucks.